everybody, welcome to the newest episode of the Bearded Booktube. I am the Bearded Booktuber, Chris Arnone. Now, I don't have any reviews yet, but I thought first I'd start with talking about what I'm currently reading. Now, this kind of happens to me a lot. I usually have 2, sometimes 3 books going at the same time, and right now it happens to be 3. So, let's talk about what I'm reading. So every year, at least starting last year, I try to read one really sort of massive tome every year, particularly once I've gotten, sufficiently ahead in my annual reading challenge. And at one point I was about 9 books ahead, so I thought, okay, it's time. And I put it out to the VERD, the vast unpaid research departments, and I had 2 I was picking between, either Don Quixote or Les Miserables. And overwhelmingly, people told me to read Don Quixote. So I am reading it. Now, I'm actually not reading this version. I went out to Project Gutenberg, and they have the John Ormsby translation, and so I'm reading that because, I don't want to carry this thing to work every day while I read. So I've got it on my Kindle, and yes, been reading through Don Quixote. I'm about 13% through right now. So it's summer, and with summer comes, lawn mowing. And I've got a fair bit I have to mow, so I try to listen to audiobooks, particularly during the summer. So right now, I am listening to, on my little iPhone, through the Overdrive app, A Pleasure to Burn by Ray Bradbury. It's a collection of short stories that all take place in the same universe and particularly thematically similar to Fahrenheit 451. It's pretty dark in some places, just really, really cool if you're a fan of Bradbury at all and his beautiful prose. It's great fun and very well read, and I'm enjoying it. I'm about 43% through that right now. And last but not least, I'm working my way through The Big Damn Sin City by Frank Miller. See all that? Big Damn Sin City. Now, I know I do a lot of cussing on my Blizz Pro Weekly, and I'm trying not to do any here, but it's in the actual name of the book. Now, of course, I've seen the first movie. I've not seen A Dame to Kill For, the second one that's out now, but I do get some press copies from Dark Horse, and so I thought, this is a great time to go through the whole thing, because the Big Damn hardcover collects the entirety of Sin City, all 7 volumes, into one. So I've been reading through that on iPad. I'm about 76% of the way through, so be looking for a review of that one here shortly. Well, I've mentioned it before, and of course I want to mention it again and every time. I've written a book. It's called The Lost and Broken Realm. You can find it on Amazon. I believe it's also on Nook and Kobo. And so I'm a writer, and I would like to talk about writing on the show. And last night I was writing. I had a real good chunk of words I put down, and I had this sort of revelation. There's many different schools of thought when it comes to writing. On the one hand, one that comes to mind is Elmore Leonard, great writer of crime fiction, and he very much believed in that the narrator, or the author, needs to get out of the way of the story, to be as minimalistic as possible, to really just sort of give everything to the reader and let their imagination fill everything in and do all the work. And there's other schools of thought that are more poetic, more artistic. They give more, flowery language to things. And sometimes that can go too far, don't get me wrong. But sometimes if you have a great metaphor, it just paints the picture so much better than, 10 times the number of words if you do it just right. And what really dawned on me is I think I'm the second kind. I think those are the authors I really gravitate toward. So I thought I'm going to have a little sort of show and tell. So as you can see, I've got Mr. Paradise from Elmore Leonard and From the Dust Returned by Ray Bradbury. A couple of good ones, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the very first, let's say, first paragraph of the second chapter for each one and read it to you. Leonard's a master of dialogue, but what I'm really talking about is what the narrator puts in, what the author puts in, how they describe their world, how they describe the actions. So you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. Okay, first up, Mr. Paradise, Elmore Leonard. This is Chapter 2, the very first paragraph. Delsa got the call from Richard Harris at home. 6 in the morning, barely light out. Delsa in his skivvies and a wool sweater, cold in the house, waiting for the coffee to perk. Harris said the firemen had to secure the place before anybody could go inside. Mostly smoke and water damage. Windows broken. So that's Elmore Leonard. Like I said, straight to the point, describes the scene, gets on with it. He was also a master of dialogue. Don't let me shortchange either of them in any way. Alright, so we have From the Dust Returned by Ray Bradbury. I get to Chapter 2, it's actually one sentence, so I'll read partway into that second paragraph that has a little more bulk to it. The cat came first, in order to be absolute first. It arrived when all the cribs and closets and cellar bins and attic hang spaces still needed October wings, autumn breathings, and fiery eyes. When every chandelier was a lodge and every shoe a compartment. When every bed ached to be occupied by strange snows and every banister anticipated the downslide of creatures more pollen than substance. When every window, warped with ages, distorted faces looking from shadows. When every empty chair seemed occupied by things unseen. When every carpet desired invisible footfalls, and the water pump on the back stoop inhaled, sucking vile liquors toward the surface abandoned because of the possible upchuck of nightmares. When all the parquetry planks whined with the oilings of lost souls, and when all the weathercocks on the high roofs gyred in the wind and smelled griffin teeth, while death-watch beetles ticked behind the walls. Didn't look at those beforehand. I just said, you know what, I'm going to go chapter 2, because chapter 1, for most books, is kind of like, up in your face, or can start with a quote. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Elmore Leonard, he's very much to the point, very clear and concise. A great writer, a great author, may he rest in peace, but that was his style. And then Bradbury, on the other hand, there's poetry to his prose. There's a beauty to his prose. There's metaphor. And I really realized I'm that kind. That's what I really gravitate toward. I like Elmore Leonard's work. Bradbury is my favorite author, hands down, because it's one paragraph. It's just so beautiful to me that it kind of blew my mind and really helps sort of guide me as I write, that this is the writer I want to be, and to be more thoughtful and more imaginative and more creative with my metaphors. It was really kind of mind-blowing and inspirational for me. It was wonderful. It was one of those great artist moments. So another popular thing to do on a booktube is talk about your to-read list. Well, strangely enough, a funny thing happened today. So I have Mid-Continent Public Library here around me. My mom actually works for them, has worked for them for like 25 years. So I've always been a fan of Mid-Continent Public Library. And I got 2 emails from them today, because I put a couple ebooks on hold, and wound up they both decided to become available to me today and automatically checked out to me. So very, very soon I'm going to be reading Divergent. If you see the last episode, or the first episode I did, you'll see why I'm reading Divergent. I'm not terribly happy about it, but I'm really hoping that I learn something from the way that the author has created the romance there. The other one that I'm more excited to read, so basically I'll be putting Don Quixote on hold while I read these two, is Ancillary Justice, which just won the Hugo Award. So I'm pretty excited to dig into that one, but definitely one of those first world problems when, both books you have on hold with the library magically become available on the same day. Good times. So I guess I'm reading those next. All right. Well, that does it for my new episode. Of course, you can always check back here, subscribe. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook. I'm a Goodreads author, Tumblr, all over the place. Buy my book on Amazon, and we'll see you next time.